Alright, hello and welcome to my final project for psychology. And today my topic is going to be about job interviews causing Americans to be unhappy with their jobs. And my resources, before anyone asks, will be down in the description below. So let's get started. So I believe that job interviews are flawed in many aspects, such as the fact that if it's not structured, then you have people being asked many different questions from many different backgrounds, and they can all be looked at from different perspectives. Not only that, with many job interviews, people are putting on a facade. And even speaking from personal experience, I, in my job interview, I could have got myself putting on a bit of a face, like as many Americans do. And I believe that it may be causing Americans to be unhappy or unsatisfied with where they're at their jobs. And the theory that I am going into, or the hypothesis rather, is that if job interviews are flawed and put employees who aren't actually suited to jobs in the work field, then they may be less satisfied with their job. And while the research I did come up with was inconclusive when researching about my specific topic, I did find some other satisfying results, such as the fact that almost 80%, I believe it was the statistic, of Americans are unhappy with their jobs. And it may not just be job interviews, but something more. And I believe that job interviews may be the start of how Americans get so unhappy with their daily lives and jobs. Because really, if you're not happy with your job, you're not happy with your life. Because going to work a 9 to 5, living monotonous days, living for the weekend, does not make anybody truly happy. You have to find the job that suits you. Because if you have a happy job, as many people say, you'll never work a day in your life. And the first thing I want to bring up is natural observation in job interviews. So, as many people know, if you are being observed, you don't act natural. And this goes the same with job interviews. And it brings up why they lie in people lie in job interviews. Because when you're being observed, you get nervous, you get anxious, and all these other thoughts come running into your head. So when you're in that job interview, you're thinking, I need to put on a face. I need to answer these questions correctly. I need to get this job. Now, one of the sites I looked at said that as many as 80% of people lie in their job interviews. And it could very well be just because that they don't want to look bad for a job interview. Because if you need a job, you're gonna lie. It's just psychology. People don't want to be looked at in a negative aspect. And that's why I believe that people will lie during their job interviews. Alright. Another experience I have just saying why job interviews are so flawed and why putting on a facade is so bad for putting people into the workforce is the fact that I from personal experience have had a coworker come in, and I'm not going to say any names just for the sake of their personal well-being, but we had somebody come into where I work, and the issue is that they were horribly trained. Not trained, but they were not fit to do the job that they were instructed. And in the job interview, I have no idea what happened with it, but I can only assume that she answered questions how my managers want them to be answered. And when she finally got to working, everybody could tell that she was not going to be there for long. And what had happened was she couldn't come up with anything to do with the job. She was not suited to do anything at work. And I believe had we had better mentoring and better training when the job actually came out, like instead of just interviewing and then saying you have the job, instead of just giving them the job. So with mentoring, you like have somebody who's already employed at the facility or company, watch the person who's new to the workforce. And what that does is it helps them find out what they're good at, what they're bad at, and it helps them improve what the new employee might be doing wrong. But if they're already hired, it's very hard for employers to say, well, we don't want you anymore after the first, second, or even third day. And the longer it continues, the more it goes on, the harder it is for that person to get fired from that job. And the issue with that is once people are hired, they're not going to get fired like immediately. So I believe one of the ways to solve this issue is to have better mentoring. And instead of just giving people the jobs immediately after an interview, maybe what we should do is give them some training, see how they function, see how they work, so that we can really put to the test like how much of what they said in an interview is true. And I believe maybe testing what people say in interviews could really help see how they function in the actual workplace. All right. Another point is that questions in interviews are always designed rather poorly, as one of the questions, I believe, let me find it. One of the questions is, tell me about your experience leading groups. And that question might be asked to somebody who is being viewed as extroverted, because they want to see like if they have experience leading groups and maybe if they would be comfortable leading groups. But if somebody is introverted, as a interviewer might ask, instead they will say, are you comfortable leading groups? The issue with these types of questions is that automatically in our brains we go to a sort of defensive mode and we try to lie, essentially. And what that does is it puts us in a situation where we say, oh, I might be comfortable leading groups, or I've got plenty of experience leading groups, when we may not really. And that about wraps it up for my study about why job interviews are flawed. If you have any questions, just leave anything down in the comments below. And don't forget, I will be posting the document that I've been kind of referencing, and that has my resources on it in the description down below. My name is Colin Fields, and thank you for your time.